Okay, so I will be basically telling why Ajax is required. Okay, what are its advantages and its disadvantages? Why we have to use the Ajax. The part two talks about the programming aspects, about implementation of CSS and implementation of some HTML scripts, okay, implementation of some XML, etc. The part three talks about the core programming. Okay, so the entire Ajax sessions will be divided into three parts. The first part is all about basics. The second part is about the structure of the programming. Third part is actually the scripting. Okay, so these are the three things. So before I move on to the concept of Ajax, let us understand what was the classical web applications artifacts and its the disadvantages. As all of you know, that when you are writing the web applications and being deployed in the server, there are a lot many text fields, various text control inputs will be available. Okay, say for example, you have a country, you have a state, and you have a district. So when I select a country, so automatically the the states will come, and when I select state, so automatically the districts will come. Now, once I select a country, the country which I have selected should be static. So again, when I reload the page for selecting the city or the district, it should not get changed. That means if you have some n number of contents within the page, if I just want to change only single component, so for example, you have 20 different user control components, and I want to just change one component without reloading the entire contents. That is where Ajax comes into a picture. See, what is the consequence of using such kind of a technology? See, if there is a lot of contents available in the web page, and putting all the contents again and getting refreshed, so will take a lot of time. So a classical web pages must reload the entire page if the content should change. So this is not the feasible thing. Suppose if you're filling some application forms in, say for example, for railway reservations, so there are some 10 or 20 fields. Okay, so what happens if you are filling some 8 or 9 fields, and the 10th field if you want to fill it up. Okay, so if everything get refreshed automatically, it takes lot of time on the server. Imagine there are n number of users and n number of applications is being used. So to overcome this kind of limitations, Ajax can be used. And of course, the content might be small or the content might be large. So what is the consequence of using these things? So more time is required to load the web page. So more time means what? So the information has to go from the client side to a server. Server has to process that request. Again, it has to send back that information back to the client. So this is a time consuming process. If it is a simple application, no problem. If there are some 10 users, 15 users, okay, no problem. But if there are lakhs of users who are using the application simultaneously, then there will be a lot of burden on the server. So the application should be in such a way that there should be a less burden on the client and less burden on the server. So there should be some kind of optimization that has to be taken place by technology, by not giving much burden to a client side and much burden to a server side. Okay, that is one thing. The second thing is, if we don't have such kind of a facility, then the response will not be faster. So now the people don't have patience to wait for the informations to be processed. So as and when they type URL, so they must be able to get the required information. How do you make web page so fast and responsive? There are a lot many such web technologies or techniques or concepts which are available to make the web applications responsive. So Ajax is one such feature or one such a concept or one such technique which makes the web applications faster irrespective of the kind of contents that it is holding. It can be images, it can be textual, or it can be any kind of graphics, maybe audio or video. You know, when you want to process the audio related kind of a contents in the web application, it takes a lot of time. So even in YouTube and other video channels, the streaming takes a lot of space, and a lot of research is going on how you can make audio and video contents to get streamed at a faster in a faster rate. So in this way, there are certain limitations of the existing applications. So you cannot do this with your simple HTML, the code. So you require something more than the existing web technologies. That is where the Ajax comes into picture. Basically, Ajax is not a technology. It is a concept or a feature or a technique which can be used or integrated with other technologies. Okay, that is the limitations of the classical web applications. One is without changing the much contents. Okay, I have to reload whatever that is required at that point of time. Okay, so that is one limitations of a classical web application. Second thing is I want to make my web page to be more fast and more responsive. That is the second limitations. To overcome these two limitations, we have a concept called as Ajax. Okay, now let us see what is an Ajax. Okay, so Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So what is the meaning of the asynchronous? So there are multiple contents which are available in the web page. So wherever I want to make a change, only that specific content should be refreshed instead of refreshing the entire web page, which takes lot of time. I have a T1 value, I have a T2 value, I have a T3 value, I have a T4 value. So all these values will be kept all this information will be kept constant, and I want to replace only T3 contents, but all T1, T2 and T4 remains same. So if I am not using Ajax, all the informations get refreshed once more. I'm refreshed in the sense again it will go back to a server. The server will process it and again gives back the information to the client. So that means all T1 information, T2 information, T3 information, T4 information. So all these informations get refreshed every time. So this consumes more time and it is not fast. So if I want to change only T3 information, T1, T2, T4 information should not be refreshed. Only T3 information should only be refreshed. So that is the meaning of asynchronous. Next is JavaScript. The JavaScript is a client-side validation tool. So where it provides the facility to do the validation at the client place before sending it to a server. Example, I have a name, I have email ID, and I have some other information. So I have a submit button. Before I click on submit button, I want to validate whether the email given is correct or not. So I don't want this information to go to a server, process it, then coming back to your client and say that your email is not correct. So instead of doing that, before sending to the server itself, I want to do the validation. So that is the JavaScript. Next is XML. I just wanted to know whether you had a XML concept in previous web technologies. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Do you know something about XML?
Just a little bit, I know, sir. I don't know scripting.
Okay. Okay, I will just refresh on XML. See, XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It is EXTENSIBLE, that is Extensible Markup Language. So whatever the typical HTML does, XML also does the same thing. The only major difference between HTML and XML is in HTML we have all built-in text where there is no provision for the developers to have their own built-in text. So, for example, you have a text tag, you have an anchor tag, you have marquee tag. So many built-in tags are there. I want to have my tags by name, say table or pen or phone, etc. Where I would like to give a definition for uh, the specific text. So, for example, the typical, the definition of say, if you place any text in the opening and closing of a B tag, so it makes a text bold. That means the definition of that tag is being written. Instead of B, if I write a phone, the same thing has to happen. I can have opening of phone tag, give some text, closing of a phone tag. Okay. So this it is not possible in the HTML to define my own text. In simple, what I mean to say that XML provides the user to have their own user defined tags. HTML has built-in tags. XML can facilitate user defined tags. One difference. Second difference is HTML is static, XML is dynamic. That means by using XML, it is possible to have a server-side interaction, which you cannot have it in a typical HTML. And the interactions between the HTML, typical HTML tags and any other scripts along with the server is slow, very much slow when compared to the XML. That means HTML is slow and XML is fast in retrieving the data. Okay, so it's, XML provides a better display than the XML. Okay, and XML has got various inbuilt concepts which can be used with integration of other technologies also. Okay, this is a very brief information about XML. So Ajax uses the concept of JavaScript. Ajax uses the concept of the XML. The combination of the JavaScript and XML to give a dynamic response to a web page. Okay, the Ajax is there in the place. So Ajax is a technique which is used for creating fast and dynamic web pages. Okay, so the fast and dynamic is highly relative. Fast is how much fast and dynamic is how much dynamic. It depends upon the type of contents that you are displaying to the end user. So as I told, it contains two scripts, one is JavaScript and XML. Okay. Now examples of some of the the applications of Ajax is Google Maps, Gmails, YouTube, and Facebook tabs. See, all of you have used how does the applications of Google Maps, Gmail, YouTube, and Facebook, and all those things. See, when this Ajax is being used in all these applications, whatever the contents that you want to see, only that contents get refreshed in all these things. Okay, so that is the advantage of using the Ajax. Next, Ajax applications are browser and platform independent. That means the the applications which is being used in which is being used where the concept of Ajax is there. So it is browser and platform independent. That means the applications written by using Ajax can be opened in any browser is irrespective of hardware and software platform. That means even the responsiveness of those applications remains constant even in Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox or Microsoft Edge, etc. Okay, so you can see the same kind of responsiveness in in all types of these browsers. And basically, Ajax can be used only with uh, some web applications using some scripts. And all the applications written in Ajax should be always a web-based. Okay, so that is why you require an Ajax. Now, Ajax is based on certain internet standards. Okay, see, for every application, every technology or every technique that you see is based on certain assumptions and based on standards. Okay, so if you even look at the very basic web technology, that is HTML, you have a standard called as what you see is what you get. Okay. Similarly, Ajax also has got certain set of standards which has got some set of boundaries, rules and regulations to display certain informations. Okay. It the first it uses a JavaScript which is used to display or interact with the information which is there in the client place. Second, you have CSS. Uh, so you know what is a CSS, what are the different types of CSS, what are classes, what are divisions. Yeah, I assume that you know about CSS. Okay. Uh, Next is your XML, which is used for uh, which can be used as a format or a tool or a medium or means for transferring data between the client and the server. At last, XML HTTP request object. Okay, so this XML HTTP request is a class which has got some inbuilt object to work along with this XML to have a data interaction between the client and the server. Okay, so this is basically XML HTTP request is a class. Okay, for that class where we define some object, through that object we do the exchange of informations or transformation of information between a client and server. So as I told you in the previous, the concept that if you have a T1 information, T2 information, T3 information, T4 information. So T1, T2, T4 will be written as it is. Only T3 information will be changed. So who has to do that job? It means some kind of a code has to be inserted dynamically to make only that a T3 information to change the contents, retaining T1 information, T2 information, and T4 information as it is. Okay. To do that, we use XML HTTP request class. Okay. So this is the standards which are used. So without which it is not possible to develop a Ajax application. So these four concepts must be available. Okay. Next, what is the working structure of an Ajax? So here I talk from three perspectives. One is from the client side, that is what you see in the user interface. Okay. Next is a backend process. Next, something that happens at the server side. Now there is an application, say any applications you can think about, booking the air ticket or booking the train ticket or say Gmail application, YouTube. You can think about any applications. Okay, these are very generic structures which can be used for any kind of applications. Now what happens here? Now I have an application where uh, I have to change only one or two contents out of 10 contents. Say T6 and T7. There are content from T1 to T10, and I want to change the content of only T6 and say T9. So all other information has to be kept static, and when I send that information to a server, only those T6 and T9 information should only get refreshed dynamically. So that is the setting. Okay. Now, once I do this, this scenario in the browser, so what happens? A event is going to occur. Okay, so that will be defined by the object of XML HTTP request. I hope all of you are aware of the request and responsiveness in a typical web application scenario. So here, what we do is, depending upon the kind of the structure that is being designed with respect to application, I create a object. I create only one object. So that object will tell what needs to be refreshed, what should not be refreshed. Okay, now I know when I select a specific, the state, automatically the specific city should come. When I select a specific district, I can see the list of areas. When I select a specific area, so I can see the list of the pin codes. So this is the scenario. Now, when I select the state, I must be able to see the list of all states without refreshing the state. I have selected Bangalore. In the next line, I will select the city. When I select the city, okay, so I must not be able to see the changes again in the state. So my application should not ask me to select the state again. Okay, so that kind of the logic is being interpreted or implemented by using the HTXML HTTP request object. Similarly, when I select the city, so it should give me the list of areas. Okay, again it should not ask me select the city. Similarly, when I select a specific area, it should give me a specific pin code. Again, it should not ask me select the area. So this internal logical things happens at the uh, backend process. Now, once this event happens, this information will be collected and it will be sent to a server for doing this. This is actually the backend process. What happens? So whatever you are seeing at the front end, where you can see only the CSS and the JavaScript. Okay, the CSS is used to store the CSS is used to apply the styles to the page, and whereas the JavaScript is used to do the validation. So at any point of time, yeah, I can do any kind of updations that is required. So whatever you see in the front end, and what are the buttons that you see in the front end, you can see only those things. So backend process will not be visible to you. Now, what I mean to say is that if I select a state, what happens at the backend? Okay, so that is not visible to the end user. So that is what is backend process. So, when I select a specific state, only the corresponding cities of that state should only come. Okay, that means the request should not be sent to a server for processing this. See what happens if you are not using Ajax in this case. Uh, Here I select a state. Okay, based on the selection of the state, response will come. Say cities. So that is one request. Based on the selection of cities, I will get the areas. That is another request too. Based on the selection of areas, I will get uh, the pin codes. That is requested. That means there are three requests which is being sent to a server. Okay, so server cannot take these three requests simultaneously, do the processing and give back the results. This is more time consuming if you are not using Ajax. But if you are using Ajax, there will be only one request because these things will happen only at the client side. Okay, so and those events will happen in the backend process. Okay, so once this is done, okay, so that will go to a server where it will process the HTTP request. So here again, I just want to make it simpler. Every time telling HTTP request means it is a request, and HTTP response will be a response. Now it will process the request, okay, and it will give back the required response. What is that required response? Maintaining T6 maintain changing only T6 informations and T9 informations, making all other content static without refreshing it. Only the server will process only the information pertaining to T6 and pertaining to T9. only that information will be sent to a browser. And here you can see these transactions or this mechanism between the backend process and the server. Yes, server, I'll be having some server side script. Like I can have a PHP, I can have a JSP, I can have a ASP, or I can have a Python. Okay, I can have any kind of a server side scripts. The information transaction between the client side request and the interaction with the server side response will be done by what is called as XML. XML component will be responsible for doing this kind of transactions. Okay, so this is about the structure of the Ajax. So I have given the explanations here, so what each means here. Okay, you can just go through it. Okay, next, what are the benefits of using Ajax? Okay, so in Ajax, you have basically four benefits. The first one is I will just come from bottom because that is very important. Okay, increasing speed. What do you mean by speed here? So I must be able to see the changes in my web page very quickly. Okay, say like how you have in your typical data structure. In order to tell that my algorithm is good or my algorithm works fine, so you talk about the complexity of an algorithm. Similarly, in the web application, you talk about the performance. So performance is nothing but the web pages open within the given time. So irrespective of the type of bandwidth it has, irrespective of the type of contents it has. So if it can be able to open within the required time, maybe say 2 seconds or 3 seconds, then you say the performance is very good without any obstacles. And similarly, usability, how well the user is comfortably can do the transactions with the respective web pages. So that is the increasing speed is the the first benefit. Second is user friendly, because Ajax applications are always enabled with responsive, faster, and more user friendly. So postback is eliminated. What is this postback? A postback is, so in the example what I have give, instead of sending all these three requests, what are those three requests? So based on the selection of state, based on the selection of area, based on the selection of say city, based on the selection of pin code, these three different requests going to a server, processing it, and sending the response for each server one after the another is called as postback. So I don't want to send a three requests to a server, process it, then give back the response. Okay, so this is called as a postback. Next, making asynchronous calls. That means it is possible to have an interaction with the server simultaneously with the different kinds of application. Say for example, in your typical Gmail application, you can attach a file. In the process, you can also write a mail. I mean to say, you can do the textual information. Okay, so making n number of activities simultaneously, okay, well, can be done by using Ajax. So what happens here, which allows the client browser to avoid waiting for all the data to arrive before allowing the user to act once more. See, this is just like your, multi-threading concept where you have n number of threads doing it, where one thread is not depending on the other thread. Say for example, there is an activity 1, there is an activity 2, there is an activity 3. So I can execute all the three activities simultaneously, provided there is no dependency between these activities. That means the output of one activity need not be activity of another activity. Okay, so output of activity 1 need not be an input to activity 2. The output of an activity 2 need not be an input to the activity 3. When all the activities are independent, okay, all these three activities can be executed parallelly. So that is what I mean to say making asynchronous calls. Okay. So next is callbacks. Callbacks is again not putting a lot of burden on the server to reload the entire page. Okay. So thereby, what is the advantage? The network utilization minimized. That means if one client doing for simple application doing three different requests, it will be a burden to a server and network will be jammed. Okay, so in order to overcome these things, okay, we can use the concept of Ajax. So by using the concept of Ajax, okay, so you can make the applications more faster, more responsive. Okay, second is making the less burden on the server. Third is you can minimize the network utilization. And fourth is increase the usability of an applications. And since it is a combination of various things, okay, so it will be very robust in nature. So for example, uh, uh, to when I want to apply styles, I did not wait till I write an HTML code. If I'm writing HTML code, I don't want to wait till the XML code is completed. Writing a JavaScript code, writing a CSS code, writing a XML code. All three are different activities which can be done parallelly. Okay, so this is the major benefit of using the Ajax. Okay, next, as I told you before, Ajax cannot work independently. It has to be used with other technologies. Okay, it is integrated. Okay, now I think the typical the definitions JavaScript, DOM, CSS, and all those. So actually, DOM is used in HTML. Okay, I hope all of you know about DOM 1, DOM 2, DOM 3. That is a document object model, which is an API for accessing and manipulating the structured documents. Okay. See, what I mean to say here is, the DOM 3, which is used for all this Ajax, Flutter, React Native, and all those technologies, where the information will be, the structured in the tree manner. Okay. So the accessing, it can be easily identified by using the DOM structures. So if you want to know more information about DOM, you can just Google it, or I may take some class after some time on DOM. Okay, so it is nothing to do with the technology. It is just an API which provides a base for developing the Ajax application. You should know that Ajax contains the JavaScript, it contains CSS, and it contains XML. So that is more important in this case. Okay, this is a typical Ajax application model where you have two things. One is the client side and other is the server side. Okay, so here a application layer, okay, where you have a user interface. The user had got some queries or some information where it want to get some information from a server. Now, to do this interface, you have a HTML, you have a CSS, you have a JavaScript. Okay, so JavaScript is used for doing some kind of validations in the user interface screen, and you have CSS to apply the styles for your web page, and HTML is a typical markup language where you would define all your tags and you put it. Okay, so this contains all these three technologies. The output of the transactions what you do in the user interface, okay, will be given to a Ajax engine. Okay, that means now Ajax engine will be like a proxy between the user interface and the server. Now the requests or the changes that is being made, the user interface will be taken as an HTTP request, and that will be given to a web or an XML server. See, here actually there is no concept called as an XML server. It is actually a web server where the code would have been written in the XML. Okay, it is the the notation. Once that is being given to a server, so in the server a logic could have been written, okay, in such a way that whatever the changes that you wanted to have dynamically, only those informations will be sent back. So for example, in this case, in server side logic and data, okay, so I was just telling about if there are 10 informations at T1 to T10, I just wanted to change only T6 and T9. So that kind of a inbuilt logic is being written here. Okay. So now since I wanted to change in the user interface only T6 and T9, okay, that part of logic is being written in server side logic and data. Okay, so this part is called as server side system. So once that is being processed, so it will be given to a server, and from server it generates what is called the XML data. Okay, why we have to put it in XML data means it is not possible in this case to have a user defined tags. Because I can request any kind of information which is available in the web page. So what happens is, so I have to create a customized tags for giving the response back. Say, so in that way, the XML data is being used. So I told you previously to have the mechanism or the component that is required to take the request and process the information in server and give back the response to a client. So we use the XML concept. So inbuilt, it can take its own tags where the responses will be defined in the XML tags, and that will be given to a Ajax engine. In turn, it will be given to a client. A client is nothing but a browser. So this component Ajax engine, which is a proxy between the browser and the server, will handle request on response. So request will go in terms of the HTML content, and the response will come in terms of XML content. So this is simple Ajax application model. Yes, so I have given the explanations here. You can just go through this. Okay. So the takeaway from this class is, what is the need of Ajax? Okay, that is the first question. What are the different technologies that is being used within Ajax? Okay, third is, what is the working structure of an Ajax? Okay. So next is, what are the advantages or merits or benefits of the Ajax? Okay. Next is, what is the application model? Okay, what is the Ajax web application model? So these are the 5 questions that you must be able to know. Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can please ask me.
Yeah, I have one doubt, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can we use this Ajax in Flutter or React Native, sir?
Uh, there is some disturbance. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir. Can we use this Ajax in Flutter or in React
Yeah,
Native?
yeah. Yes, you can use it.
Okay, sir. That is what I want.
Yeah, you can use any one of this because Ajax, this Flutter and React Native also uses this Ajax.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah, anybody, any clarifications?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
See, Ajax is very important. See, it can be integrated with many of the server-sided scripts actually. Okay, if you are using some Python in the later cases, okay, so you can also use Ajax. So if you don't have any clarification, shall we end up this class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Huh? Amit, Amit, yeah, Sarfaraz, you can just send me the recording, okay?
Okay, sir. I will send them.
I have to upload in the YouTube, and I will be sharing this Word document also. I will be uploading in Google Classroom.
Okay, sir.
Okay.